The bad part about today is that some of the problems are just awful in that they have awful PRCs. The good news for you is if it's odd, you could always look in the back of the book and get the first one and then divide that out. On a test, hopefully they wouldn't be that bad of numbers to check. In your book today it says find the zeros, write in factored form. So that means once you get your zeros, you're going to write out as factors like x minus 2, x plus 3, and we'll look at that in a minute. So when you're doing this, definitely you want to look at your PRZs. If you want to do Descartes' rule of signs, you can to help you. If you don't want to do Descartes' rule of signs, I'm okay with that, but I'm going to do it on this first one just so we can have an example of that since it's been a while. So for the positive zeros, I'm just going to take the positive. Positive, 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 negative. Which means I think it only changes one time, which means there is one positive real zero. And if I look at the negative, I'm going to change all the ones that have an odd exponent. Even exponent and negative doesn't change, so that's going to stay positive. That's going to change to negative. That's going to stay positive. That's going to change to negative, and the negative 18 is going to change to negative. 1, 2, 3. Is that right?
Well, it is 3, it's not the
4.
negative doesn't change to negative.
What do you, the whole thing is flash fashion.
You just make that's called a jar.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, marker and eraser.
Help.
Yep, it works.
It's flashing.
Ready.
It's flashing. That's not good.
Just punched it. Goes over.
Ah, it helps when you punch it.
No. That looks a lot of things. Why does this little message keep coming out?
Because it's what happens every time it reloads. I knew there was 3. I just clicked the wrong one.
Then you said 4 after you did it.
I know, because then I thought I was wrong. ARZs, factors of this over factors of this, yes? See the ones on your homework. Factors of 18, plus or minus 1, plus or minus 2, plus or minus 3, plus or minus 6, plus or minus 9, plus or minus 18. Is that right?
I'm going really slow.
Factors of 3, plus or minus 1, plus or minus 3. I think one of the ones on your homework ends in 75. They're all terrible. There's one that ends in like 240. I didn't pick that one. It's awful. They're awful problems in your book. But if it's odd, you can just look in the back of the book and get the first one.
Why do bad problems get assigned to
Is there just one that isn't on?
2, but I think one of them. So let's hopefully we can find one that works here that's not a fraction. I'm not even gonna list all these out, but we could, right? I'm just gonna save us time. But all these would work, and then we'd have to check 1/3, 2/3. That's all, right? That's not so bad. It's a lot to check.
Yeah, okay, but you have to check all of them positive and then all of them negative.
So let's start checking around and see who can find one first.
I'm going with 6.
I'll start with 1. 1's not gonna work. I'm not gonna write all these out. I'm just gonna check on my calculator, okay? 1 doesn't work.
I'm gonna go with probably like 2/3 and negative 1/3.
Negative 1 doesn't work. So I'm done with this one. Doesn't work. You tell me when 1 doesn't work and I'll cross it out.
Negative 1/3.
Did you check it already?
No, check out. I did it.
I got $5 on it.
You and Megan are the only ones to drink.
Well, guess we're gonna be here all day. We won't
I'm
have
getting off calculator.
I don't understand.
I don't know, sometimes you can't trust
I'm checking positive 2/3.
I could just get the book out and see what the answer is.
Does anybody check 2?
I lied. I checked
6 doesn't work.
Oh, man.
Go 9.
I'm checking 18 then.
What did I just check? -1/3 doesn't work. I'm gonna cross that out. What doesn't work? 6 doesn't work.
Yeah.
I'll just cross out.
And -6.
-6 doesn't work. See, too bad we can't all do our homework together, right?
You have to write in a factor formula.
-3 doesn't work.
You guys have group calls?
Do we have to write it back formula?
Anyone have
Yes.
Skype?
I'm still checking 18.
How many people can you get Skype? I don't know. 9 doesn't work.
Are you serious? I was working on it.
I think -2 works.
No,
We should have just went in order.
You think or you didn't?
I know. I looked in the book.
1/3 works.
Okay, and -2 works.
Okay.
So let's divide out -2.
But it says I have $5 on the third. Okay. Then I guess.
Right? That's the worst part about these problems, I think, is finding the ones that work if there's a big list. Because once you find one that works, it's just the same process every time. And
Just tell.
Yeah, that was good.
on the unit test, there's one where they say find all the zeros, assume this, and this doesn't work, so that they eliminate some of your PRZs to make you have less to check, which I thought was really nice. Maybe I'll be so nice like that on the test. Like,
Maybe we should check it.
54. 6, -12.
Where'd you get 1 at? Where'd you get 1?
3 times -2.
I'm adding.
It's okay. I'm gonna have one of these. Yeah. There's only 5,000 FFA members.
Oh.
It all works. Still got 0 hours.
It's been one of those mornings. I started my truck at 8:30 this morning.
If it makes you feel any better, I bought 36 cans of food to go put in teachers' boxes to try to keep myself from having to kiss a
That
pig.
does.
Are you a,
Right there, 36 cans.
are you a voter?
Well, the good news is I'm starting a war between teachers because I bought cans to put in other teachers, and so now other teachers are going shopping.
Salmon.
I saw. Does anybody remember when Tommy Mysteries? I can hear it from like the other side.
Yeah.
9, is that right? -9. 18 is 0.
23rd.
Now, Kelly said that 1/3 also works, which is great that we can do, but I also want to remind you about the factoring, because if you didn't know that 1/3 worked because we weren't working together as a group and you didn't want to keep checking these, I always check to see if I can factor by grouping what's left, and I think that you can a lot of the times. Like on this one, if we wrote what was left, we would get 3x squared minus x plus 27 squared x minus 9.
But I thought that's
Why
what
that
we got.
squared?
Yeah, why do you have 2 squares in there now?
No, because you didn't factor by grouping.
Why do you have to square?
Why got your squares?
That should be a cube.
But you said you wanted to see me
30.
I wanted you to check what was left that it wasn't imaginary, because what was left was like x cubed minus 1, right? And you just kind of solved it and said it equaled -1. I wanted you to like factor it and see that what the other part that was left was imaginary.
I still don't understand.
I know, we'll look at it.
We still have like 3 other classes in 2 hours.
Oh my gosh, quit whining.
Huh?
Quit whining.
I'm not whining. I'm just saying that's what you think.
If you, oh my gosh, I'm gonna punch this board.
You already did. I don't think you're gonna hurt it as much as it'll hurt you though.
200 classes. Yeah.
3 other classes.
3 other classes in 2 hours. But 6 though.
And I can take a 9 out of this, and I get 3x minus 1. I'm not saying you have to do it this way. I'm just saying if you were doing this by yourself and not in a collaborative group of us all checking random numbers, I think this way's faster than randomly checking them all. Because then you can put together what's left, x squared plus 9, and 3x minus 1. And then we could just solve that. You with me on that? No one's either.
I'm listening.
I am listening. I can hear
I don't know who's outside though. They're making me out though.
I know. I'll show you that in a minute. The homework quiz, I picked a bad homework quiz question because the only PRZs are 1 and -1. So if you only checked 1 and -1 on that PRZ and you wrote those as your answers, then you got your answers. But I wanted to see the work that you were looking, because what we did on that homework quiz is if it was imaginary, we weren't going to solve it, right? And so on that homework quiz, if you divided those out, you got left with this. What I wanted to see is either, like, if you factor that really factors into this, which is the sum of 2 cubes. Or if you synthetically divided it out, you got left with this. I wanted to see that what was left was imaginary. You see what I'm saying? And so if you didn't do that on that homework quiz, that's why I took a point off, because how did you know what was left was imaginary and not just a radical? That's why that on that homework quiz I took a point off. Does that make sense? So you could have synthetically divided, or you could have factored. If you would have got this is what I was looking for. Okay? But today I want all the zeros, which means even though this is imaginary, I want you to say that that's plus or minus 3i. When I solve this, I get 1/3. And what was the first one that we got to work? Degree 4 polynomial. Did I end up with 4 answers? So I know that those are all the answers. The directions say write in factored form, which means if you leave your answer like this, is that in factored form? No, so you have to write it as x minus 3i times x plus 3i times x minus 1/3 times x plus 2, because those would be the factors if these are the zeros. Well, it just says write in factor form, but you're right. It's really nice if you write f of x equals, but I wouldn't mark it wrong if you didn't. The good news for you is sometimes it's factorable to begin with, and you don't have to do any PRZs. Isn't that great? Well, we're just going to look at it. What time did we get out of here? 24. 24. Yeah, plenty.
10 minutes.
What if a problem like this? Find all the zeros of x squared plus 5x squared plus 4. And so what I want to remind you of is sometimes you might do your PRZs and none of them might work because they might be all imaginary answers, which means I really want you to recognize that you could factor this. And Vaughn says we could do that whole U substitution, right? Where I don't even do U substitution, but I'll do it that way if you want me to. But if this is x to the 4th and this is x squared, to me, I just think about, instead of in my parentheses, instead of writing x and x to give me x squared, what two things multiply together to give me x to the 4th? Yeah, so to me, like, I just do it like this, but in algebra 2, you guys would do like this, like u equals x squared, and then you would write u squared plus 5u plus 4. Remember doing that? And then you have to go back and plug u in. I don't care which way you do it. It's always, x to the 4th is always going to be x squared and x squared. To give you that, I'll do this both ways to see which way makes, like, whatever way you want to do it. Yeah, and a lot of people do. Because then it's just a quadratic, right? And you get u and u. But guess what? You're going to end up with the same answer. Because no matter whether you're using x squared or u, what multiplies to give me 5, that adds to give me 4. What multiplies to give me 4, that adds to give me 5. 1 and 4, or 1 and 4. And the signs are going to be plus, plus, or plus, plus. Yes? The difference between these two problems is you have to plug back in for u if you're using u. So if I'm doing it over here, I get u equals -1 and u equals -4. But I don't care what u is. I care what x is. Always feels grammatically wrong to say that. I want you to plug back in that u is x squared. And now you can solve that problem. We get the same thing over here. You just skip that u step. If you solve these, you get x squared equals -1, x squared equals -4, and we end up at the same answer. It's just what makes the most sense. Do you like u or do you not like u? I don't like you that much.
I just said I hate you.
It seems like no one likes you anymore, Nathan. What? No, I just am a goofball, and I keep making stupid mistakes, which makes me mad.
Can I go to my locker?
substitution is if the middle exponent is half of the first one.
Yeah.
So like if this was x to the 8th, what would this have to be? Yeah, and then you can, yeah, yeah. Well, but what if it was x to the 6th and x to the 3rd, it would be x to the 3rd and x to the 3rd. You know what I'm saying? Like whatever the middle one is what that becomes. Whatever your u is becomes what goes there. But I don't care either way you do it. Either way, you should get plus or minus I and plus or minus 2I. I will tell you, if you start a problem and none of your PRZs work, probably it means like they're all imaginary answers. Like this problem has no real answers. All 4 answers are imaginary. Yes.
So what do you do if it's not factorable and
It has to be. Like if none of the PRZs work, it means it's factorable. Okay, like there's not another option. Yeah, and so I think I'm giving you 4 homework problems. I know one of them for sure is like this, that's factorable. So if, to me, when I see 3 things like this, automatically in my head, I think of quadratic form, I think of factoring, and I see if I can factor it first. Unlike this one, like, we can't factor that big mess, which is why I would jump right into PRCs. Factored form, that would be x minus I times x plus I times x minus 2I times x plus 2I. I want to look at one more, and I'm going to just tell you which one works first, just because I want to show you what happens, like maybe having to do quadratic formula, because we haven't had to do that in a while, right? That's my last one, and it's going to be super fast, because I'm going to just tell you which one works. I made this one up myself. What do you think about that? I have the multiplication on my paper. Like, I picked the zeros, and then I multiplied it out. So let's see if I multiplied right. I feel like you suck. You're so mean to me. Like, you're always so negative. He has no confidence. So,
Wow, Nathan.
wow.
Wow.
Nathan, you better just close your mouth. No.
Yes? Oh, the yes, I heard yes.
Factors of 40 over factors of 1, which means there's a lot to check here, right? 1, 2, 4, 8, 5, 10, 40. There's lots of them. 20. But guess what? I'm going to tell you 4 works. So let's try that one first.
Yeah, that's it.
F of 4 works. So let's divide out 4.
I'll have a pencil.
Well, maybe you shouldn't stab people with it. That's going to be nice on the recording.
Nathan's not a person, so it doesn't even count.
Sophia, be the bigger person. Be the bigger person.
Be the bigger Puerto Rican? May I borrow a pencil? What happened to your pencil? I stabbed Nathan. I'm not even lying. Well, it didn't really count because it didn't draw blood, so.
Well, we don't know yet.
Oh, yeah.
I think I'm going to have to separate them.
Maybe he's got extrapolated.
Segregate?
Segregation.
Yeah.
That's not right.
There, no,
My dad
Wow.
covered a rat.
Doesn't work at all.
My
You're
dad
wrong.
covered a rat.
Yeah.
Cat fight at the fair.
Dixon.
I did that.
Back.
Good job.
Wait, what did you do?
They took some kid's white rat.
6 times 4 is
Cat fight.
28, like 4.
Look at that. But he was like a powder form. Big crap.
It really is. Oh, yeah, that's true.
Homework.
Give us
I'm
the
not
homework.
negative 4. I'm not negative 4. X equals negative b plus or minus r.
What if you didn't like with this? Let's pretend it worked. And what if this is what we were left with?
Hey, guess what? I assumed right.
That's what started it so.
Sorry, that wouldn't hit anyone if you wouldn't have put your hands out. Just so you know. I wasn't really going to hit someone.
Okay, so it worked.
Stop.
No, it was like factor 4.
So, I just wanted to remind you, this is not factorable. There's nothing that multiplies to give me 10 that adds to give me -6, yes?
Yeah.
But unlike what we did last week, we still want the answer to this, which means you have to either complete the square or do the quadratic formula. I don't care which one, but you've got to do that if you get an answer like this. So this one would be really nice to complete the square on, right? Because that's even. If you don't want to do that or you don't remember that, remember this. X equals -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. You plug it in, you work it out, even if you get an imaginary answer. Okay? So my problem's a big hot mess, so
How do you
complete the square. Well, look at, I'll come back later and show you. 32 and 33, 36 and 37. I will tell you that 32 is factorable. And I think 36. So, how nice of me. Both even problems that I picked, I think you can factor. So, the other ones, I still expect to see work. The back of the book is just going to help you get an idea. Like 37 ends in 75, so I don't expect that you check all of those. Maybe check a couple, and then you can cheat at the back of the book. 35 ends in 26. 26 isn't that many to check. No fraction. There's no fractions to check on any of them if it makes you feel any better. But just remember, you might have to complete the square or do the quadratic formula. This is it of Unit 3. Like, there's no more stuff for Unit 3. The plan is tomorrow we're going to go over this. We're going to review. And Thursday we're going to have a quiz. Friday we're going to start Unit 3 review. And we're going to review more than one day for Unit 3. But next week we are going to have our Unit 3 test. And then we'll start Unit 4 before, like, next week. So before March even. So...